Hi, in this video, this will be your last assignment for PowerPoint, the Power of PowerPoint for week 1. In your last assignment, you're going to take this material board template that was provided for you, and you are going to use PowerPoint to add techniques to change colors, to adjust size, to crop, and to bring in new images, add shadows, effects, etc. So basically, you're not going to reinvent the wheel here. I've provided a template for you, but you're going to see how through PowerPoint you can add some simple effects that make the materials board look three-dimensional. So first of all, when you're doing materials board, pretend like you have a mat board or a surface that you're actually laying these material samples on. So a flat surface that you're laying these materials on, and eventually you might take a photograph of those samples. So if you were laying out these actual samples in a room on a surface, there would be a light source and there would be a direction of the shadow. So what we want to do is we want to think about kind of selecting things that don't have too much perspective, that looks like you're looking at the sample from above, so flat, one point. So here is like looking above at a succulent or a plant. The samples of the materials, the tile, the stone, the wood, we're just lying those flat on the board. So in this example, you know, the light source is coming from over here. Let's just think about that, a 45-degree angle, and so we're going to cast the shadows in those directions. To begin, you'll want to enable editing. So if this comes up that there's a protective view, that means that I had a protective view on it, or someone had a protective view on it, that you first need to enable to go ahead and edit. So you want to click on that. I'm going to remove this, and now you can see that I'm ready to edit. So I'm asking you first to, let's just do a couple of things. Let's go ahead with the existing composition, and let's go ahead and add some bevels and some shadows to these images. So you can see already in this example there's a bit of a shadow. So this is just a small piece of fabric that would cast a very small shadow. Let's say on top of that very thin piece of fabric we're going to place a piece of marble. Now marble has some thickness. So click on the marble, go to Picture Tools, and you're going to go to Picture Effects, Picture Borders, to find out, you know, what we can do with these different pictures. So a border is adding a border or a perimeter around it. Picture Effects is adding what we want, a bevel. So we want to add a bevel to this so that it looks more pronounced. So now you can see that my marble that was once very flat now has a bevel and some thickness. Now you can just go ahead and play around with which ones that you like better. This one. And then you can go to the options under your bevel. So hover over this, come down, and there's some 3D options for you. And you can change like the size of the bevel. So I'm going to make it very pronounced for you. I'll change the size of the bevel. You can change the depth. So, you know, just kind of play around with these so you can see the different things that you can do. You can change the lighting. So we want all of our lighting to be on a 45-degree angle, so that they're all going to be consistent. And I'm going to reset. Oops, reset took it back, excuse me, reset took it back to the original. Picture Effects, bevel, bevel options. I definitely want to make this 45 degrees. And then I can X out of that. So my light's coming from over here, and I have the light coming over here. So now I'm going to cast a shadow at 45 degrees. So now my marble has a bevel. You can play around with what type of bevel you want. The sun's coming from over here on a 45-degree angle, and now I'm going to go ahead and add my shadow. I'm going to use this one, drops to the bottom right, which is 45-degree angles. Look at, there's all different kinds of shadows. Shadows can go up just from the top, but I'm just going to pick this one for all of mine on this drawing just to be consistent, so there is a consistent light source. And then you can go down to the options and play around with the shadow. So I want my shadow, the size of my shadow. See if here's my shadow. I want the size of my shadow to be a little bigger. So I have a thin shadow on a thin piece of fabric, but on a big piece of marble, I might want it to be a little more pronounced. So I'm going to just increase the size just a bit, and I can click off of it. And so now you should see, just by the suggestion of the shadows, that this piece of marble is a little thicker than this thin piece of fabric. Let's do the wood. The wood. Select a bevel. You could play around with the size of the bevel. So now you can see it's almost like a frame. I want to change the angle of the lighting on this bevel to 45 degrees so that we're consistent. And I want to add the shadow. So instead of kind of having to always go back, you can just format that same picture. So my shadow, I need a little more of a distance. I need to pick out what type of shadow I want. I want that same outer 45-degree angle, and I want to increase the distance or the size of that. Great. So now it looks like I have this nice piece of wood, and I don't know if I love that bevel, but that's up to you to play around and have fun with that. I'm going to format my picture of this letter A. So let's cast the shadow, the same angle, right? You can play with the size. Great. And I don't think I'm going to add a bevel to it, so I'll just leave it at that. So all of a sudden you can see that our materials, our objects are starting to look, a little more three-dimensional. All right, so here I'm at the plant. So I'm casting a shadow on the plant. This, of everything I've done so far, is definitely going to be higher. So it will produce a larger shadow. So all of a sudden you can see that I'm producing this shadow. So I've taken the time to crop out this image, and now when I cast that shadow, it's casting in the right direction. So let's do this now. So you have maybe a piece of fabric here, or wallpaper again, some more tiles that you can add bevels to and cast shadows and play around with. Now let's take a look at the faucet. So here's the faucet. We're going to format the image, and so I want to add that same cast shadow. And I'm going to increase the size like I've done. before, and that looks pretty good. But let me show you what's going on here. Do you see this handle? This handle is suggesting that this handle is pushing this faucet a little further, and I'm going to use the word distant, off of being directly on the paper. So the distance is going to be a little more pronounced than our other samples. So I'm going to just play around with the distance, and you can see how it's offsetting the shadow a bit further away from the object. And this is how shade, shadow, highlight works in reality. So there you go. So continue on finishing adding your bevels and adding your shadows, and right away your board is going to start to look a little more authentic, a little less cut and paste. You're also going to take the time to change the coloring of a few things. So I'm going to select the pink fabric above, and I'm just going to quickly change it to another color, like maybe linen. And I'm going to change that to a different color. So you can change it to green or blue or orange or whatever you want, but I kind of like this linen color. Too bright. To me, that's too blue. So I'm going to go to color corrections. And here's the color tone, cooler to warmer. So I'm going to see if I can get it a little warmer. That didn't really help. So there you could play around with it until you get the color that you think works well. You can also do a color transfer on top of it by using the eyedropper. So I'm asking you to play around with some color. I'm asking you to insert a few more of your own images in. So if you don't like my succulent, maybe you want to put this one in. And you'll remove the background and cast the shadow. I like that. I mean, already it's looking quite different than what it was. Crop. I gave you these were there for you. If you go to class shares, there's a bunch that we and students have collected over the years. So if you want to play around with some of those, maybe you want to bring this down here and just put a twig. That's up to you. And I want to send that back. Remember from the last video, I'm having trouble because I've cropped it so far out. So if I want to avoid catching that all the time, it's invisible. So I can crop that further. Then that helps me not catch that as much. Use the align tools. So if I want to align with the tile above, you can see I can do that. There. If I want to align with that bottom tile, there. If I want to rotate, use the rotate tool. And I'm asking you to do one more, so I'll just throw in one more. So quite quickly, this looks different than what we've done before. Have fun, and if you want to put your own initial here, let's put your own initial here. Remember, select picture tools, remove background, keep what you want to keep. Okay. Didn't catch the tips. I want the tips of that nice succulent. Right? Go ahead and format your picture. We're doing the outer shadows. Let me make sure I got the right one. Outer 45, that's true. There it goes. What if this is a bit too bright and pronounced? So my board is pretty muted. So what you can do is you can go to Picture Tools, Transparency, and you can just play with the transparency a bit, and that fades it out. It also fades your shadow, which could be a problem. Let's see, what else can you do if it feels a bit too pronounced? Maybe take down the saturation. There, I like that better. What do I think I need? I never like to see something once in a drawing, or in a composition. So I have black, so I see black around. I think this needs to be more black. So let's see what I can do in color. I like that a bit better, right? So now it's my eyes following black, black, black around. I like that. Gold is nice and balanced. But I would like green one more time. So a nice sprig of green would look really good here, or something green I think needs to be right here. And then I'm done. So once you're done, you'll go File, Save As, and I want you to save it. You can save it as a PowerPoint, save, so that you can refer to it in the future, or you can just go ahead and drop down. You're going to save it as a JPEG, which is an image. And the computer will eventually ask you if you want just that one slide, and you will say yes. Just this one slide. So my computer is a little slow right now because I'm processing videos, I'm posting on YouTube, I have my Canvas page open. So you want to make sure that you don't do that, and you'll have a little faster response as you're doing this. I need to get rid of that corner, add that green sprig. And I hope you've enjoyed this, and I hope you will use this as a professional designer.